Hey, Guido, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. As you know, we've been asking people about the best Belgian bands of the 80s.
Yeah.
There were a lot of different ways for people to vote. At the end of the day, all the votes are in. Well, close to 60 bands received votes. It was extremely close, but I can share with you that Cyclone got the number 2 position, just
Uh-huh.
after Ostrogoth. Um,
Yeah, Ostrogod is a, you know, they're a big name, eh?
they are a big name. They are a big name. Is that people clearly still really like Cyclone or have really good memories about Cyclone, given that you know people like Cyclone is still so popular
Yeah, it
today.
looks
Most
like that,
people.
eh?
Um, does that to some extent surprise you, or were you expecting that? What's your reaction?
Huh, we just started out this band again now just because we wanted to play and we didn't know what to expect, Of course, during all those years, there was always, well, people will always show up to you and talk about the band and ask you questions, but we were kind of surprised that it was still, it was still alive in that way. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite surprisingly, especially also with the tryouts we did. The 4 small shows we did sold out in a second, and we just said like, "Wow, this is
Yeah.
it still lives." It's cool to see. Of course, we're happy
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, if you look at most bands in most Belgian bands from the 80s that got some traction both in the 80s and that are still popular now, a lot of those bands are more in the heavy metal, power metal categories. There definitely were a good amount of more thrash metal bands, but maybe not as many that made as big of an impact as you guys did. We also had Target, obviously, in Belgium, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a smaller group. You guys also, your albums compared to some of the other bands in this who made the top 10 in this vote. Um, Most of your work was more released towards the end of the 80s. Um, that may have kept you more relevant also throughout the 90s and for a younger audience.
Maybe. Yeah, the first album was from. We recorded the first album in 1986, so it came out somewhere. And 1986, if I recall it well. So the second one was recorded early 1990 and came out in 1990. So there was almost a 4-year gap in between those two albums, and yeah, why there is still a popularity around these two albums? I don't know. Maybe it was the golden era, we were amongst the first league of thrash metal bands releasing an album, especially in Europe, especially in Belgium. We were the very first thrash band.
Yeah,
Bands like Target popped up like 2 years after us, So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, Cyclone has always been considered as being, like one of the metal bands in Belgium, and for the old timers especially, it always stayed that way, There,
yeah, yeah,
albeit that there's other good trash bands in Belgium, of course, like Target, for instance,
yeah,
which I
yeah.
don't really consider as a full-on trash band, but
Sure,
we
more
shared
progressive.
stages,
Yeah,
we played together, and especially the first Target album, suited well in the trash scene. The second one was more progressive trash, something else than we did. We were
yeah,
like a full-on, straightforward trash band, and we developed through the 90s to a technical trash band, which
yeah,
was the evolution in trash, of course,
yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe, yeah, why people still have interest in it. It's my guess, your guess, I don't know, but it's good that it's still that way. We're happy with it, of course.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, I mean, yeah, you mentioned you guys played with other Belgian bands as well. Um, you guys played a lot of shows in the
Yeah.
80s. Um, if I were to ask you, and I know that this is a difficult question, but if I were to ask you, from those early days in the 80s, is there one specific memory that really stands out for you?
It's a tough one because there's several good memories, of course, but of course, there's like shows when you open up for bands like Metallica or Slayer.
Yeah.
Those are, you know, things that you will never forget. Of course, we played with a lot of bands. You know, we played with, you just name it in thrash. You know, like Overkill, Dark Angel, Destruction, Creator, Sodom, Agent Steel. We played them all. You know, but playing with Metallica or opening up for Slayer on the Rain in Blood tour, that was, of course, something special that you never forget. Of course, that's
Yeah.
you know, I have very fond memories of that, especially also meeting those bands and sharing dressing rooms and having great conversations and being getting good critics of those bands as well, that say like, you guys are tight and it was a good show, and you know, it does something with somebody, you know. If gods like Slayer and Metallica give you those kind of, you know, compliments, it's you know, yeah. So I definitely pick out those two, you know.
Yeah.
The very first show with Acid, our very first show with Acid was also something like that, you know. The very first Cyclone show, opening up for Acid, you know, it was something in those days, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And Acid also a band that definitely helped start thrash in the early 80s.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They were like they were earlier on as we did, you know, because, you know, we started out like the end of 1980, early 1981, but it took us like 3 years to get the lineup that we needed, you know. So the other bands, they started out in the same time, but they had the good lineup, you know. And that was not the case for us. Of course, the kind of stuff we played was more complicated to play than the regular metal stuff, of course. And you know, it was something new, so you didn't always find the right musicians in those days for the genre, you know. That was the most difficult, finding people interested in your band, because what we did was new and nobody, you know, a lot of heavy metal guys back in the day said like, what are you guys playing, you know, this is kind of punk or what is it, you know. So it was weird, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And excuse me. So it was weird back then. It became very popular, obviously, throughout the 80s. Thrash is maybe almost as popular today as it was in the 80s. There was a big revival of thrash in the early 2000s with all those old bands coming back. And that brings us to today, where Cyclone is, you know, back together. Been working on a comeback. You've already mentioned some shows. There is more planned with Cyclone. What can you share with everybody watching this video? What should we keep our eyes open for?
Well, of course, the first thing we're gonna do now is play some festivals, because we did a few tryout shows in very small clubs. You know, capacity only like 150 people, and we only invited friends and people that were involved with the band in the past. So now we're gonna start playing some bigger shows. We do the festivals first, like Alcatraz. We have the Metal Experience Festival in Holland in September. We have the Blast from the Past Festival in Belgium at the end of December. Then we have the Keep It True Festival in Germany, and then there's offers for, you know, for shows like in the most incredible places, but it's you know, we're still working on that to get that all done and settled, because it's, you know, if you get an offer to play South America, it's not that they say like, okay guys, we come. You know? There's a lot of things to do. And then we also have like we have some old stuff that is that we didn't record back in the day, like stuff from in between the two albums, like there's like 4 or 5 songs that we would like to record and release, because we think from all that we did after the first album and just before the second album, and songs that just dropped off, and there's a few of those songs that we really like, and those we would love to record those and release them on a CD, you know. Then after that, if it's possible, we would like to record some new stuff, you know, because we're actually working on new songs, and we have like the basis for like 6-7 new songs already. So
oh wow!
So me and Stefan, the original guitarist in Cyclone, because we're the only two original members, you know, like we have a new drummer, Matthias, we have a new bass player, Kevin, Vincent, and we have a new lead guitarist, Kevin. So, and me and Stefan, we are the two old-timers in the band, the two original members. So, and we write the songs. That's what we also did in the past, you know, like we wrote all the stuff for the albums, especially the Inferior to None album. Stefan and me wrote all the stuff. And so now we have during the Corona period, we had like a regular weekday. Every Wednesday we would meet up and make stuff at Stefan's home in his home studio. So yeah, it worked out well because we were like, can we still pull it off, you know, after all those years? But it's funny to see how quickly you get installed again into all kind of stuff, you know. And it was like it was never away. It's crazy, you know. It's like the ideas came and we were like just bringing on stuff and oh yeah, that's cool, that riff and wow, you know, it's like we never stopped. So, So awesome. There's some stuff to look out for, yeah.
All right, so just to recap, not only do we have some festival shows coming up right now, I will see you at Alcatraz, by the way.
Great.
And so if all goes well, I also have my ticket for the Keep It True festival in Germany. Well, that's still a few months away.
That's for April next year, if all goes well.
Exactly. So lots of shows coming our way, and then it sounds like we might see an EP with old re-recorded stuff and potentially an album coming out with new material. That's a lot of great news and updates.
But the old stuff we're going to record was never recorded before, you know. It was only on rehearsal tape, and we never released those songs. Plus also what we plan to do is we're going to re-release the first albums. So we just remastered Brutal Destruction, and we're going to re-release it, and then next 2 weeks we will remaster Inferior to None, and so awesome. We're going to reissue both albums.
So for the fans of Cyclone, it's going to be a very busy time in the next few years. Awesome.
For us too.
Awesome. Well, hey, Guido, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Congratulations again on being the #2 band out of all those bands.
Thank you to everybody who voted for us.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.